Hello everyone. The I hope everyone is healthy and they're doing good. And let's start with the session now. We already have the sufficient audience. The this session is particularly about building Microsoft Logic apps and what you need to basically consider before started or before implementing the Logic app. What point you need to consider? What are the best practices? Actually, you can adopt it. So this will help you out later phase of the project or later phase of the implementation that you will be not running out with the bugs or maybe not running out with the out of thoughts that okay how we can actually do this because somehow we haven't learned from the previous experience or the recommendation we implemented something wrong and now we are struggling with that one. So I will cover most of the things what even I have learned by myself with my peers while implementing the Logic app projects or maybe some of the different MVPs from this stream. So they guided me earlier as well and they discussed with me on some of the scenarios that okay how we can actually overcome this kind of the situation. So let's start with that. I will start a brief introduction from my. My name is Ambesh Singh, and I'm the Dynamic 365 architect and the technical manager currently in the KPMG Deutschland. And I worked for the different organizations and with the different teams. So basically, majorly, I worked with the Microsoft for a long time, and I worked with the MSN, Bing, and the Portal teams, like the product teams. Apart from that, I worked with the Electronic Arts in the gaming domain. I worked with the Pearson View, and currently I'm the ambassador of the 365 Saturdays as well. So I'm conducting trainings and the other valuable stuff for the community. So let's start with this that I would say what all the session objectives that we are going to achieve at the end of 50 or 55 minutes. So because this session meant for the L100, so I'm not going to say or not going to speak more about some more technical aspects or more depth in that. So it will be on the normal level so everybody could understand and but you are feel free to ask any of the question if you have, and if you have the expertise, you are struggling somewhere, I'm always reachable to you. So at the end of the session, the agenda is that okay, if you are moving out from this lobby and from the next day onwards, that if you have a thinking or if you have a thought to implement the Logic app, then you don't need to start from okay, where I can start it, what is the Logic app, and what all the things I need to consider before implementing the project. So these kind of thoughts should not come to your mind. That is the whole sole agenda of or the objective of the this particular session. And in terms of the topics, what we will cover it in next 50 minutes. So basically, we will cover about more or less about the Logic apps, that what is Logic app and why we need to use the Logic apps, how it's internally work, and where we can build it, which is more important, with some references, which will be very useful for you, and followed with the Q&A session. The topic actually best practices. Most of my session will be targeted for the best practices. So I will not talk much about that. Okay, what is Logic app and those definition, but definitely I will talk more about okay, what are the limitations we need to consider it before jumping into the Logic apps. What are the points we need to consider it? So this kind of things definitely we need to learn. We need to remember when we are gonna implement the Logic app projects. So the first thing is that I need to know, okay, what, why, how, and where about the Logic app. So as per the Microsoft, if I will go in their words, so as per the Microsoft, that Azure Logic app is a cloud service because it's definitely it's available on the Azure platform, and which help us actually to schedule, automate, and orchestrate the task, the business processes, and workflows whenever we need to integrate our applications, the data, the two systems or the multiple systems or the hybrid systems and the services across the enterprise and the different organizations. So that is somehow the Logic app. in the layman, if you will ask me, I would say in a simple word that this is one of the offering from the Microsoft or the cloud that you can actually automate your stuff, you can integrate it, and you can do a lot more apart from that. Then the second question is actually why we need the Logic app. We have the different tool. We can write so many applications, and there's a complete world is open. Then why only the Logic app? So for me, actually, I would say unlike any of the Azure offering, I don't need to bother about okay where I need to build it, how I need to host it, and about their scalings, how I need to manage, how I need to maintain, and do I need to hire a resource to just continuously monitor for that one. So these kind of the headaches I don't want it, and that's what the Logic apps come. So Logic apps actually handle this all the concerns for you, and apart from that, which is really important, you need to pay what you use it. So you don't need to pay what you are not using for. So this is really important for that. And how internally it's work. So it's unlike any of the application or any of the programming language, that how any of the programming language works. You have a scenario where the trigger will generate, you need to capture those. So event, there's an event handler, and then you need to write a methods or the building blocks, what you need to achieve when something happen. Logic app is perfectly working in the same fashion. So that is more about the what, why, and how. And the most important thing where you can actually build it. So it's very unlikely like a flow. So flow you can actually build it even with the mobile UIs also, but definitely with the web portals also. The same with the Logic app. So Logic app you actually can't build with the mobile UI. There's a reason for that one. Maybe I can cover that later on. But the most important thing is apart from that, that in the particular Logic app scenarios, you can build it definitely on the web browsers. But apart from that, you can build it on the Visual Studio framework as well. And there's a specific reason for that one, because this Logic app is more and less meant for the developers, like the pro developers or the people who actually have the knowledge of the basic development. So it's not like a business creek or the citizen developers that they are gonna and just drag and drop couple of things and they just build the nice and beautiful flow or the Power Automate now. So I hope till now everything is clear. If anybody have any question, they can just ask me. I'm open with the questions also.
Hi Ambesh, this is Jonathan. Well, I have just one question is that it looks similar like the Power Automate, but what are the major differences and when should we use what? If you can answer, please.
Yeah, sure, Jatin. So the thing is that definitely your point is totally valid. That this all the things actually I can do in the Power Automate or the Flow, previously Flow also. Why then still I need a Logic app? So my first answer is that Logic app is a kind of the big brother for the Flow, because in the Flow also internally the engine which is serving all the purpose is the Logic app. So Logic app is the engine for the flows or the Power Automate now. So this is the one thing. And as you know, that Logic App is Azure cloud-based service that actually enable us to develop and deliver integration solutions with ease, right? And it also help us to build, schedule, and automate the process as a workflow. So we can actually integrate apps, data system, like as per the Microsoft, we can integrate a lot of things. However, Microsoft Flow or the Power Automate is a SaaS offering. So Logic App is the platform as a service, but Flow is the software as a service offering. And you can do again, like you can automate the workflows with a growing number of application nowadays there. And Microsoft is really putting a lot of brain and the money into that. So you will get basically the SaaS offering and the platform as a service, the PaaS offering. So this is the basic difference in both of the tools or the offerings. The second thing is what is your target audience? So which is really important because flow are generally meant for everyone. Everyone can go and just make their hand dirties there. Logic app is not likely that one. So flow, you can, like if there's a SharePoint administrator, they have the access of the flow, they can go and build the nice flows. The office employees, the business user, the citizen developers, so anyone can go and build the flow. Logic app, I'm not saying that these people can't build it, partially yes, but it's more meant for the developers. So it's not only for, okay, because there are a lot of things are required inside. You can actually you can pass the JSON inside. You can write your own payloads there. So there are a lot of more offering for the developers also here. And the second thing is definitely the business scenario. So if your business is purpose is very easy, Flow is the best for that situations. But if you are really looking for the advanced integrations workflow in your business to business, like the B2B environment, then I would say Logic App is the solution for you. And as I told, like the another difference regarding that the tools from where you can develop, definitely both of them you can develop it via browsers. Flow you can develop with the mobile apps. Like if you got some error, you can quickly just open on the mobile and then just fix it and deploy it. Logic app you can't build on the mobile. So for Logic app, you need a web browsers like the portal.azure.com, and apart from that, you can also build on the Visual Studio. Personally and honestly, I haven't built the Logic app over the Visual Studio because eventually I found that okay, browser are much convenient to me, so I can do a lot of stuff there, and I haven't realized that okay, I need Visual Studio for anything. Sometimes yes, if I need to compare few things, I will tell you in the subsequent slides. But technically, I didn't had a feeling that okay, I need to open the Visual Studio and just set up this and start the development from here. And apart from that, actually, you know how to reach to Flow, like now the make.powerautomate powerplatform.com or the flow.microsoft.com. But for the Logic app, actually, you need to go for the portal.azure.com. And apart from that, there is a licensing plan as well. So Logic for the business, sorry, for the Power Automate, actually, you just need a separate licenses, like maybe the Office 365 or something. But for the Logic app, actually, you need to be part of the integration accounts of the Azure because you are meant for the integration for the different products here. So you definitely needed that one. So I hope this is pretty much clear. Then there again, like as a pricing also, there's a lot of difference that okay, Flow actually you need to pay on every run. Logic app works differently a bit. You need to pay definitely on the runs, but it's more centric on the triggers and the actions and the other parts also. We will probably cover later in the pricing session. But this is probably high or less the difference in the flows and the Logic app offerings. And in short, if you are looking for the complex situations or the complex integration scenarios, Logic app is the answer. If not, then you can achieve most of the things via Flow. Okay, so I would move to the next slide then. I hope this answers your question, Chetan.
Thanks, Ambesh.
Okay. Now, I need to start like the to implementing the Logic app. I need to start the project there, but how I can start it? That is the first questions which comes in probably everyone's mind. And the answer for this is actually like unlike any of the programming languages, you need to document this. So the image on this particular slide is not very much related with the Logic app architecture or something, but I would say it's more related with how you need to build any of the product XYZ, any of the product. You need to create an outline. So it's more likely you need to create a technical design documents, or you need to write your cases accordingly or complete business processes. So why I'm saying this, because what happened, like you got a requirement, okay, we need this, and a second, please. Okay, sorry for that. So you always think it about before development that okay, you need to document it. It will not help you while implementing this, but later on also when you will go in for the supports or for the enhancement for that one. If you don't have a documentation, it's really hard for any of the product to just sustain for the long time. You will always get into the trouble, especially when your team will change or something. And that's what my first recommendation is. Don't directly jump and just drag and drop, but before it, document it. Maybe use the Visio or some other tools that what you want to achieve via the Logic app, and pass it to the implementation team, and they will just go through and they will start developing on the base of that one. which is really important. Now, which is probably the important topics, that the pricing model. So we have the two kind of the pricing model available here for the Logic app. One is the consumption-based pricing model, and second one is the fixed pricing model. And how it's work actually. So in the consumption-based pricing model, it's pretty clear that okay, what you use it, you need to pay for that one and that one only. You don't need to pay a single penny or single cent additionally to anyone. Very unlikely. The fixed pricing model is basically meant for the integration, integrated environments, and you have to pay the particular amount even if you're using it or not using it. But for that consumers, I hardly found most of my colleagues who are into the fixed pricing model. Most of them are using the consumption pricing model only. So what they are using, they or their customer are need to pay accordingly to that only. So this is basically the difference into to this. So consumption pricing model is basically for our multi-tenant, and the fixed pricing model is basically for the integrated service environments. Um, then here I would give a pause on the slides, and probably I would show quickly how to create actually Logic App from the UI perspective, because if I will go like by slide, it's really hard to actually connect what I'm talking here and what you have actually available in the portal. So let me just quickly pop out my browser here. A second. So like you need to log into the portal.azure.com here, which should be pretty simple. You can go to the home, and from here you can create a new resource. I usually prefer to go to the resource group and start it from there. And the reason is actually because I need to develop my all of this stuff related with that resource group. I don't want to just jump here and there in the multiple resource groups, which may lead the problem in future for me. So I usually try to prefer create a resource group. If you have any customer, if you are doing for your own organization, create a resource group for that purpose and start your all the development, because then you can actually logically connect all of your parts. Like if you have connections from the SharePoint, if you have a connection from the SQL, then they all stored in that particular resource group instead of here and there, and it's easy to maintain. So I have already one of the resource group. I would go there. And here I have an option to just add few things, what I need to create it. And definitely I just, I'm looking for the Logic app. You just need to type it here. And here you go. So you need to just click on the create. There are a few documentation available. You feel free to go and just check it out. And you need to give the Logic app name for that one. So an example I'm doing for the customer, just in say Microsoft, and I'm doing this for the Teams or maybe Skype team. Then the next one is probably what I want to achieve it. So I want to just create probably editor in AX from something like that. So why I'm trying to do this, because your naming convention is really important here. If you name it like Logic App 123 or something like that, it's really hard in future to maintain this, because it's really confusing for the other guys if you don't follow the naming convention here. So then you can actually at the last you can put it, and it's again like there is not hard and fast rule that how you need to name it, but it's your own preference. I usually put the dev, test, or the production. So if anybody is seeing from their naked eyes, they don't bother about okay, this is the test one or the dev one or the production one without going to the connectors or the triggers. And you just need to review and create. That's all. So your logic app is created here. And after creating of the logic app, it will take around 30 seconds to 1 minute. And then it will deploy everything for you. You just need to go to the resources. This is somehow the UI look like for the logic app. So the moment you will go to the resources, you will fall into the logic app designer view. And currently it is blank. I have so many connectors available here. So it's probably more than 100 connectors, or so many enterprise connectors, standard connectors are there. Eventually you can create your own custom connectors also and serve your like the requirement. For now, I just take a blank logic app. So it will give me a blank template, and I need to start it from my own. So I'm just looking for the trigger point. So just suppose I'm just looking for the dynamics. I have a dynamic 365. I need to select the trigger, and here basically when I need to trigger this logic app. So I'm taking a scenario. Okay, if the account is getting created, I need to send an email to some of the distribution list. Okay, this account is created in the CRM, so they should know. Okay, something is happening in the CRM without going every time to the CRM instance. So this is one of the scenario just for the testing. So an example, if the account is created, so I can just take it. But here, if you can see, I have a when a record is created, and the second one is again when a record is created with the preview. So preview is basically like as any of the Microsoft offering, they give us for the general audience or the developers to use it to, if they found any bug, they will fix it. But there is no recommendation, probably even from the Microsoft as well, that you need to go with this preview feature to the production. So even that is not my recommendation. So if you are really looking for the production in the next 1 or 2 months, I would not advise you to go with the preview feature. It's always recommended to go with the stable versions. For now, I just took this one. And here, basically, you need to select your organization. So suppose you have a 20 organization, you can select any of your organization. Then you can select off any of your entity available here. So just for this, maybe I'm just selecting the account here. This is really important part that, okay, when your logic app need to be triggered. So definitely it's a pooling system. So when a account record will be created, it will trigger. But the moment you will create an account, it is not going to run it or execute it. So it work in a more fashion like a pooling. So an example in the current scenario, every 3 minutes it will go and check, okay, how many accounts has been created, and then it will execute those all the accounts here. So this is somehow you can actually do this. For now, I'm not going to save it. I will just keep it like that because I have already one test or the demo logic app up and running, and I can just go through from there. So this is somehow you can actually create the logic app. And the next important thing, like you can still do all the things from the code view also, which I just talked it. For me personally, it's really hard to understand the code view. It's much complicated. And if I have an offering to create anything from the designer, I don't want to just go in a code view and write everything for my own. As simple, because I need to just build it as quicker as possible. I think it's pretty clear now. And if anyone have any question till now, they may ask me, like how we can create it, what are the different parameters we need to consider till here, so I can answer. If not, then I probably move to the next phase. Okay, so what we were talking about, like if you saw in my demo earlier that I just created a first block. I selected the organization, then I selected um, the entity, and then I selected, okay, what would be the interval and what would be the frequency for that one. So those things are basically triggered that when my logic app need to be executed. In short, the first step, your logic app. So your first step of your logic app is always a trigger. So basically Logic App offers the three kind of triggers. You can go for the pooling, webhooks, or the recurrence. I will give you a very short description for all of them. Like the recurrence is basically the schedules. So you need to run your Logic App every 12 o'clock at night, or every weekend, or maybe every month end for some salaries or the bonus calculations. So these kind of the triggers or the schedule triggers are basically the recurrence triggers. The second one is the webhook. So webhook, I just need to call my logic app immediately for any purpose. Maybe I'm calling from my logic app from the other environment. It's not the Dynamics or not the .NET, maybe from the Java. In that case, I just need endpoints, and webhooks are basically kind of the HTTP request is one of the example. So I can create the HTTP request based triggers, and webhook is the example for that one. So it will immediately got triggered. Immediately it will serve the purpose for you. I will show you maybe in one of my demo as well. And the pooling trigger is again the important aspect that which I just created it. It wait for a couple of duration or the frequency what you set it there, and it will then go and check the pools. Whatever the data or records are available, it will come back and execute all of them. So this is basically the three basic uh, trigger points for the logic apps. Okay, so going forward, like from the slides, I will talk more about the limitations and the configuration information for the Azure Logic app, which we always need to consider before planning, before implementing it. So we don't want the situation, okay, we did something and we are blocked because we were not aware about that one. So personally, I don't want to trap on those situations, and I should know my product or offerings well before I'm gonna for the implementation. So I would start with the definition limits. So if you can see, it's more like a table, like we can all read it. That I can add till 500 actions in my logic app. I cannot add 500 first action in my logic app. So you will get an error. And if you really need, because I created a logic apps integrations, and honestly, I do require more than 500 actions on some complex situations or the integrations of the products. And in that case, you can actually plan it in a better way, or you can divide your task into the different logic apps and call it from the main logic app, or maybe from one logic app to the another. So there is a parent-child relationship kind of this stuff will work. The same like any programming language, that you have one method, from one method you're calling the second method. So you don't want to push everything to the one method. It's most likely the same here. So we can always think it about this before starting. And I just use the word like parent and child. So it's more like a logical. There is no technical parent or child logic apps actually in the offering. So one logic app is almost identical as a second logic app in terms of every pricing, so functionalities and everything. It's mostly it's logical stuff. Okay, you treated one logic app as a primary or parent, and the second is the secondary or the child, and so on. And any of the nesting of any of the actions basically. So you can go till 8 levels. Ninth level you can't go. I will just show after the slides that what I meant for. You can actually declare 250 variables per logic app. There's a 25 switch cases blocks, and please remember that default is again a default is a handles or the case block, but it's also count one. So technically 24 switch cases plus one default. And you can write 8,192 characters per expression, not more than that. Name of your actions or the trigger could not be more than 80 characters. The length of the description field could not go beyond 256 characters, and maximum parameters you can get it, or you can um, like output as output, it will go like a 50 and 10. So you can't go beyond this limit. I will just quickly go to the next slides and more talked about the run duration. So in the multi-tenant, which I just talked about, like consumption-based model, it's a 90 days. You can retain the run history and the storage for 90 days. Very unlikely for the integration service environment, it is hopefully it's 365 or 360. So because in few documents I also saw the 366 days, but it's mostly like a complete 1 year. And the minimum recurrence interval should be the 1 second, and the maximum recurrence interval can go till 500 days. So this is again one of the important aspect. Let me just again quickly jump to my logic app and just show you that what I meant for this one. This is one of my logic app basically. This is the edit mode for that one. So I was talking about the trigger points. The first step is always a trigger. These are the variables. So basically I just declare the variables. So I can declare till 250 variables. That is the stuff. Then the description fields or the variable name, it depend on you, that what you need to give. Again, you need to follow the naming convention, but there is a limit for that one. So always remember that. And you can actually also go and put the comments. Comments are really important because if you have more like if you have more and more steps, it's really hard for the other person or maybe even for you going forward, that you probably won't understand what you build it in that particular scope or the blocks. So comments will help you in that case. It's like any programming language. When you build something, you always give a comment in the starting of the function or starting of the classes. This is one thing. I talked about the depth. So an example, I have a one block here. uh, this is the second one. So this is probably the second depth. I go more deep. This is the third depth. If I go more deep in depth, this is the fourth. And in this way, I can go till 8 levels. If you really need to go more than that, because honestly, believe me, there is a situation, and I encountered the same kind of situation where I need to go more because of some logics. So the best scenarios you can actually create the child work and the child logic apps, and you can pass it parameters from here and then do remaining calculations there. Okay, then I would probably move to the next slides, and I would more talk about the trigger concurrency. So it's unlimited when your concurrency control is turned off, and it's by default when you enable it, it's set to the 25, but you can go from 1 to 50. What does it mean? So quickly just go back here. And here actually, an example, I have a for each loop. So in a for each loop, how it's work, because like now everything is working in a thread based, in asynchronous process. But if I just want, no, it should not go in asynchronous process. I'm sorry for that. It need to go one by one, like in a more iterative approach. I could go to the setting, and there's a concurrency option available for me. It's available for every iterative objects, and actually I can enable or disable it. So by default, it should be 25. You can go till from 1 to 50, and it's more depend on your requirement. I honestly I don't want to change anything personally, because until as there is not any specific requirement. So if there is any specific requirement, definitely I would go ahead and change it. I would show in the demo that okay, what I meant for and how it's work later on. Very quickly, the next one. So basically it's the for each array items, like there is again a limitation that there's 100,000 limit for the for each. If you are really going beyond that, like an example, if you're reading a large SharePoint list or probably rows from the Excel or maybe the SQL tables, and you are expecting that your record will go for more than 100,000, then you could go for the query actions instead of the for each loop. So there is always an option available for that one. And your basically your maximum waiting runs in the concurrency, if it is on, then it could be go from 10 to 100. It's again depend. So this is one, and then I would talk about the HTTP limits. But before that, I would go back and show you the concurrency stuff, that what I meant to talk about. So I would go on the run. So as I told you, like you have the two views, you can go for the runs, you could go for the designer view. So there's an option available, and you can see the major commands on the top itself. So I'm going on the run and probably just open one of that. So I would come here in a for each. Okay, this didn't run it because of, I would show some successful one very quickly because that step didn't run. The previous step was failed. So that step didn't executed. Maybe I can check this quickly. Let's see if it is executed those steps correctly. So this is basically on the left. If you can see, these are the run histories and it can retain up to 90 days. And to retain it, actually, you need to pay to the Microsoft for the storage. So that's why it's very wise that, okay, you really need it for the 90 days or you need more than that one. So what I took it actually, I just took a variable called increment and I was incrementing from one to the another one. And if you can see here, the increment is going from 1, 2, 3, 4 in a more sequential way. Just take it here. And here you see where I just turned off the concurrent. So because it can go in any fashion, you can't bound it for a sequential fashion. So it start with the 15. Then if I go to the next loop result, it go to 11, then 12. So it's more like a non-sequentialist based. So this was, I was about to talk about the concurrency. It really help you when you are doing some kind of the increments or the decrements in your for each loops for some specific purpose or the logic, then you need to consider about these points. We can actually call the HTTP from your logic app, which as usual, like because it's more meant for the integration. So I just call the one of the HTTP request from here, and I just passed the URL to there, and it gave me the result for that one. So the previous slide is basically about the HTTP request functionality. So just quickly go to the and just check. So you have few options available here when you are dealing with this kind of scenario. So the pagination is very much like if you need to just send the chunks in the page or not. If you open the secure input and output on and off, like turn on and off, you probably will not able to see the result in the run history. So as I told you, like here I can see, okay, what was the output, what was the input for that one. You can see everything here as an input and output. But if you enable this, you're probably not able to see the inputs and the outputs. Those will be the disable. And this one is really important, the asynchronous pattern. So in the asynchronous pattern, as you know, like there's the two option, like the synchronous or the asynchronous call, especially when we talked about the services or something. So by default, it's synchronous. You can make it to the asynchronous as well. And actually, you need to decide it. So if you're like in one of my situation when I was working for some integration, I need to read the values what I posted it. Like I created some record. I need to fetch the record ID of the created record, and I need to make some operations on the base of that one. And it was failing continuously because it was not behaving the way it's need to be expected. The reason was it was asynchronous. So maybe I sent the three calls from here, call A, B, and C, but it's not guaranteed that I will get the result also in the same fashion. So the result could be the B will come and the C and then A, and it was completely destroying the requirement of my application. So we found that, okay, you need to just in the loops, basically when you deal with the loops or there is some calculation based on the result of the outcome of this HTTP request, you always need to go in a synchronous and then make it like a concurrent one. So you always go one by one. Definitely it's more time taking, but there's no other option for that one. And asynchronous, when you don't need to do, like it's probably hit and forget. So you need to go and update something and you are not dealing anything after that, then asynchronous is the best option for that one, like any programming language. Um, Apart from that, we have the timeouts. So the slide which I was talking about is a timeout. There's a default value for that one. And apart from that, you can actually go and customize that. And the next one is the retry policy, basically. So if something is not working, by default, Logic App will try for 4 more times, especially with this error like 408, 429, and any 500 error. But if you really need to just configure it, you can actually go and say, okay, no, I don't want the default one. I maybe need a fixed interval. So for every this duration, I need to go and check it on every this interval. So it means on every 5 minutes, it will go and check it till next 20 times or something like that. So that was exponential is more and less related with that. But again, you can go with the minimum and the maximum intervals and none. Okay, if something goes wrong, if these errors come, don't proceed. And I don't want to just retry again and again. Please remember, if you are making your retries, like because this is the action and action will perform the stuff per action run, you need to pay something to the Microsoft, which is very minimal, but you need to pay. So always consider that you really want to make a exponential, like maybe 50 hits or retries or something or not. Okay, back to the slide. So the previous, this was, I talked about like the 122nd, it would go and check for the ongoing and the synchronous request. 1 GB data, actually it's go for the message with chunkings. If you really chunk it, like if you're downloading any of the files, you don't need to download in one go. Maybe you chunk it and download it. For multi-talent or the consumption-based model, it's a 1 GB. But for the like integration service environment limit is the 5 GB, and you can again go and configure it. Like you have the possibilities available. Retry attempt is by default 4, which I talked about. You can go till 90. Retry max delay, you can set it to the 1, which is again like it's a configurable. So max delay, you can delay your retry till 1 day. Okay, if not working today, maybe just go and check it next day. Maybe you're picking some of the SharePoint list, and on that list, on the base of that list, you need to perform something, and the list is not available. In that scenario, you can hold your logic up maximum till 1 day. And the minimum delay is probably on the 5 second. So if you're hitting something and if something not working, you can't just hit another in 1 second. So minimum delay, it's the 5 second. And how you can actually configure this retry, I just explained you in the Logic app. Okay, we will go very quickly. So we actually can create the custom connectors, which is probably one of the beauty of the Logic apps. And you can create till 1000 per Azure subscription, those custom connectors. And regarding the execution of those custom connectors, there's a limit that there should be just 500 requests per minute per action. Sorry, per connection need to be triggered accordingly. So this point also you need to consider. Now, the next important thing is I shown you on the Logic app. There's a just let me quickly go to the here, and here you have a two option. One is the delete, and the second one is the disable. What we need to think it about it, what we should know about this. So disable and delete by name it shows okay, it will delete it and it will disable it. The more important thing beyond the process, if you are disabling something and some execution are already in the pipelines, those will execute before disable it. Delete, as you know, it will delete it and then you can't get it back. So these are the two things which you really need to consider. The another important thing, actually, what we encountered when we were working and when we started with the Logic app a couple of years back, that uh, we were building something on the Logic app on some entities, and there was a test team who imported maybe more than 10,000 records via the Excel import, and the record is created, and our trigger was on the record create, and our Logic app started running. So we found this, we stopped this, and we told, okay, if someone is like as a practice, if someone is importing or doing something, please circulate our email. Next time they did it right, the circulators, we disabled it before they went it. But the problem is occurred after that. The moment we enabled after this, we found, okay, whatever they imported, it imported in the instance, CRM instance, it started executing for all of those imports. And we was surprised. Okay, what happened now? Because we disabled it. It's working in the same fashion. Even if we will disable it, your runs will run because it's create a pool. And you disable the Logic app runs, but you can't disable the pools there. The workaround solution, what we did it, I'm not sure like if someone has an idea that how we can do this, I'm really happy to know that one. But the workaround what we did, we changed the connectors. So we changed the connectors when someone was importing. And I told you in the trigger point, there's a connector where I usually need to choose the instance, and I ideally need to choose the entity. So we changed it, saved it, they did it their action, and we again change back when we really need to start the next process or next development on the top of that. This is somehow we handled it. If there is other solution, probably currently I'm not aware about that one. Okay, so this is more and less related with the disabling and the deleting logic apps. Very quickly, I will go. Naming convention, I explained you, it's really, really, really important. If you are defining something, please define it, because if you add any of the action in the logic app, by default, it will take an example. If you add send email, so send email will be the first action name by default. If you will add another action with the same name, it will be send email 2, send email 3, and it will keep going like this. And you will not have any idea, okay, what the send email 1, to whom he's sending the email, what situation is he sending the email. So it's always good to please follow the naming convention, especially with all of these steps, actions, variables, because later on there will be a problem. And what problem I was just talking about actually, um, just an example. Let me again quickly go to the Logic app and just show that if you create you already define something as a name or as a description, you can't change it actually. An example here. So here, if you can see, I cannot rename it right now. And why I cannot rename it is but logical, because probably I was using this variable down. So it's not like a Java code or the C# code. Okay, you just open the Visual Studio or the code editor, you just select it, rename it, and everything will be fine. So here there is a limitation. The workaround solution, if you really need this in the future, if you forget to release something and you need to rename it, you can go to the code view. In the code view, copy all the code, paste it in some editors, and change it whatever you need it from there. And again, come save it here, and it will work like that. That is the workaround probably for that one. So you technically you cannot change it from here, but yes, there's an option that you can always go to the code view and change it together where it is getting referenced or where it is declared every places. But we really need to be focused on that one, because it's always risky if you change anything in the code view, maybe some typo or something. Then when the moment you will come back here and save it, it will it will not allow you to save it, or it will create a problem in future if you are not very focused about that one. So I already explained why no one can rename it actually if it is already referred somewhere, and how you need to handle it. You need to go to the code view and change it from there. Can we create a local versus global variable? Technically, there is no local and the global variables in the Logic app. You can just declare the variable at the root level. You cannot declare in any scope or any for each or something. You can reuse it. You can again set it, but you cannot declare it. Clone functionality. Okay, this is again one of the important stuff. So I have an option here on the root. I can clone it. Why it is more important? Suppose I already went live with one of the Logic app, and I need to make some enhancement on that. Definitely, I won't prefer to make the changes in the same one. I would clone it. I would make the enhancement and I would pass it to the testing team. If they will say, okay, I will clone like in another name, and then I will replace the production one. That is probably the best idea to achieve that one without the downtime. So you can clone it and you can start your development there, the next iteration, the next level, and then you can work there itself. Please remember, if you're cloning this, all of your connections will also get cloned. So if you clone on the account entity trigger, the cloned one will also start triggering on the same one. So if you are doing something like on account of CRM creation, you are creating a account in the business central, it will create a two for you, which is you really need to consider about that one. The next important part is timeout. So as I told, like timeout is really important. You don't want to just run your your HTTP request or something maybe for each for forever. So you can go and set the timeouts. Okay, if it is not giving result for this duration, please stop it and proceed it and handle it later on in the code. How you need to deal with the synchronous and the asynchronous request, I told you. You have the buttons available. You can just enable or disable it, and you can achieve concurrency control. I already explained initially. Try, fail, try again, and success. Like it's more like if something got failed, there is no retry option available in the logic app. That okay, you actually configured it, and if this logic app failed, it will again execute to check it. Okay, if I'm getting passed or not. This is not available. So what you can do it actually. You can configure it, like you can design your application like that. Okay, if something is getting failed basically, so I need to make at least one retry in that case. And how you can actually do this, I'm just taking a quick example here. So I did a try. In the try, I just have one HTTP calls. I passed it. So if something got failed, I came to the switch. I'm checking the status code from my this request. If it is 500, I can go to the 500 and I can make one more retry. And if it is 200 or some other status, I can actually go and proceed my work. So this is somehow you can build it to retry it. Okay, so next, really important things, especially when you start with the Logic app, please save every time whenever you can. There are the two important things for that one. The first is definitely if you are doing something and you forget to save it, you went home, you come back to the next day, your session expired, everything will be expired what you've done. There's no automatic save for that one. And the second, which is probably as a developer is more important for me, saving means it is compiling the code for you. So you saved it, it compiled. If there is any error, it will tell you immediately, okay, there is something wrong with this block, what you just developed it or what you are doing it. If you did it, if you are not saving it, you are doing a lot of stuff in one go. And later on, if you save it, you found, okay, there's a compilation error, it's really hard to find it. You will just get a message, okay, we can't save because of this, but honestly, hopefully you will get an idea, but most of the time people don't get it, why it is failing, and then you need to roll back everything, which is really like annoying in some situations. Okay, I just talked about the rollback, how I can make a rollback here. So again, you need to go to the home and like any repository, we have repositories here as well. So you can go to the version. The latest one is here. So you can't promote it, but you can open any other one. And here you will get actually the offering that you can promote again as a live one. So okay, I was working yesterday. It was perfectly fine. It was up and running today, and from yesterday, since today there was a lot of change, and I don't know why it is not working. So you have an option immediately to go and promote that build. Definitely you will lose the changes, but at least you will get your workable code. And preview feature I just talked about. Like I'm not good fan of release the preview features related stuff in the production environment, but I'm at the same time very good fan of to at least explore or take a deep dive that what the preview feature is offering for me, because most likely it will convert from preview to the general availability. Data type I talked about in the Logic app. So if you declared any of the Logic app here, so just very quickly, let me go back to the Logic app in the editor mode. So you just select the Logic app overview, and now I can go to the edit mode. In the edit mode, basically in Logic app, you can declare variable as I told, and the variable count, the variable data type should be out of this only. So you cannot declare the another variable. So you need to use the predefined variable what is available for you here. Peak code, again, one of the important things. So an example why this kind of functionality is important. From the peak code, again, you will get the site of the code. So the good part is that you can see, okay, what is this code doing or something. So this is a small block and this is just a trigger. So it's pretty much fine. But the problem is when you have a large blocks with the scopes, with the try catches, there's really hard to find by just clicking and going on and seeing on the same screen. You can peek the code, you can check it, because probably you are from the developer background, you can easily find out the reason for that one. The bad part is actually you can't change any code on the peak code. So it's not something you open the code and you change it and save it, it will not work. You will not get the save option there. You always need to change. If you really need to change it from the code, there's only one way. You need to go from the code view. Okay, we have 2 minutes left. Configure run after. I will explain this for now. I will just skip the slide, but I will explain more in the practical way, because again, like Logic App don't offer you the try catch and the finally blocks like any other languages. You need to design it. So if something is getting failed, it captured properly and run it. Logic App, from complex requirement, you always can create the child workflows. Child again is a logical but not technical stuff. So this is the another stuff, which is we already covered. We can actually see the logs. I will show you that as well in one go. High throughput is again in the preview feature, so you can actually get maximum result from your Logic App. Like it can run very concurrently, maybe so many requests they are just serving in simultaneously. You need to just enable it, but it's again in the preview, so you need to always consider about that one. This is, I talked about the retention policy of the run history. The default is the 90 days. You can go to the custom and increase or decrease it from 1 to 90. It's up to you. I would always go and prefer the advisor recommendation, which is available at the point of my resource group. Very quickly, I will just show you here the try catch, how we can build it. So you have a try, you have a catch, and finally. So if something goes wrong in the try, it will come to the catch. Otherwise, it will directly go to the finally. What you need to go, if you are creating the cache block, you just need to go to the configuration run after. In the configuration run after, you just need to check, okay, if previous step has failed, then only do this. Otherwise, don't do this. So if you have something bad in the try, it will catch it. Otherwise, this step will be skipped and it will go to the next step. Finally block, how you can actually do this with the same configuration run after. You can go and check, okay, if the previous, because it need to be run every time. So if previous is successful, has failed, or is skipped, you always need to run this. So this is somehow you can actually build the try catch and functionality, try catch functionality. Advisor recommendation, actually, as I told you, like you need to go to the very quickly your resource group level, and here you will get most of the things like the cost management, monitoring, and here is the advisor recommendation. I would prefer to use this. Initially it was in the preview, but now it's available, and you will always get some clues from the Microsoft machine learnings and the other tools that, okay, something is not good or not secure in the Logic App or your keys or something, and you can actually configure that one. So these things also you can do it actually here. um, Practical implementation, I just want to show you here. So an example, I'm just going to create a new account, which can be Microsoft Corporation, and I just save it. So as you remember, it run on the save of the newly created account, and I saved it. Let's go and check how it's work in the Logic App. So very quickly, I would go a second. So we are already out of time, but I will not take like more than 2-3 minutes. So I can see here, like my Logic Apps executed successfully, what all the inputs come, how it performed. You can always go and check each of your Logic App stuff. Okay, what's come as input, what went as an output. The important part here, what I want to tell you, that you need to design something like this, that, okay, there is a Logic App run ID. I configured it. Why it is important? Because I need to capture this on as a first step. And if something goes wrong, I need to send it via email, or maybe I need to just store it in some list or somewhere in my finally block, that, or the cache block, that every time if something goes wrong, I have this run ID. Why the run ID is important here? Because suppose you have thousands of the run here, most of them are failing or not failing. It's really hard to find the appropriate run from there. So if something got failed, you can't come and see, okay, yes, definitely you will get something is failed, pass, but what exactly on, like an example, on creation of the Microsoft corporation account, there is a logic app field, but what logic app will be, you can't see unless you are not going and see and opening every logic app, every field logic app. So it's good to pass the run ID, and just I copied it. So my run ID is this, and I can easily come and see, search in the list and go and check it. Okay, why it's failed or something like that. Apart from that, I just emailed the logic app related stuff, that I just use one connector for the Outlook, and I say, okay, logic app executed recently for Kodak UK with run ID something or something like this. So you can get it, and you can just directly go and see the errors as from the admin perspective. Okay, so you will get more information from these links. You can actually, it's very useful and a lot of information available here. And now I'm open for any of the questions and answers. If anybody have, I would be happy to answer that one very quickly. Okay, no worry in that case. So you actually always reach out to me via Twitter or via the LinkedIn and ask your queries. We can discuss more about. If I can provide the solution. If not, then at least I can provide you the correct contact who can help you out in that case. So you can always reach out. You can actually fill out the survey if you haven't done in any of the session previously. So you can go and fill out the survey here, and it's good. You will get a lot of stuff from there. And I would say thank you everyone for attending this, and always reach out to me in case of any of the query you have. Thank you.